Hi, welcome to the Power Wheelchair Comparison, where we are going to check out the top power wheelchairs on the market today.
I think it's very unfortunate that sometimes it's really hard or a fight or a battle to get necessities like this chair that we need for everyday life. I wish that there was more funding. I wish that more insurance covered this, because it truly is a life-changing experience for us.
CMS is the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. They're the governing body that sets the funding and the policy around what Medicare reimburses for complex rehab technology. So what's important to know when CMS says that they're going to make a price cut or they're going to do something, every other major payer, including state Medicaids, commercial payers like United, Anthem, Cigna, all index and all pay off the Medicare fee schedule. So the policy that CMS sets directly impacts the end user and their product, no matter who their payer is, because everyone indexes off of that payer.
The Group 3 chairs are considered indoor chairs, so only for use inside the home, whereas a Group 4 chair is categorized as an outdoor chair. So Group 4 chair normally will have independent drive wheel suspension, bigger motors, it'll go faster, that kind of thing. It's made to be an outdoor type power chair.
In today's world, Medicare only allows, for some people, a chair that allows you to get from your bedroom to your living room, and that's it. In other words, you don't exist beyond that point. And anything you need beyond that point is disqualified. That doesn't make sense.
Medicare redid that entire classification system and came up with the, Group 1, Group 2, Group 3, and Group 4 system, and then underneath those, all this different subcategories. So there were very specific sort of rules and regulations that each chair had to have to fit into one of those groups, among which was the how fast it would go, what the battery range was, and there was a top and an end to that. So that is a great example of how sort of CMS and the regulations kind of defined the technology.
Unfortunately, Medicare is looking at the initial cost, purchase cost of equipment. They're not looking at long-term cost. They're not looking at what is best for the individual. And so by not paying for Group 4 chairs, they're really doing people who use power chairs a disservice. And by not providing the equipment that's needed or the equipment that's going to last for the period of time that they want it to last for.
The manufacturers were still able to say, listen, we realize that, for instance, if someone has a spinal cord injury, it's typically a much younger demographic than someone that has a stroke. For someone that has a spinal cord injury, they may have, they may absolutely want to get back in the workplace. They may have young kids. They may not have any kids, but want to have kids down the line. And we recognize that they're going to want to get outside. They're going to want to, go to ball games, go to work, go to whatever it is, whatever those activities of daily life that aren't restricted in the home are. And so they've made chairs accordingly that will do both things, that are good in the home and they're good outside of the home. The danger with Medicare, with CMS more directly making these big, broad cuts, is that it drives down the reimbursement, which drives down what we are able to pay the suppliers for the equipment, which inevitably drives down innovation and R&D, right? If there's not as much money in the marketplace to pay for something, there's not as much money to fund the research and really make the big technological breakthroughs that can lead to so many improvements in people's lives.
If the technology's there and people need it, it should be funded.
I think that Medicare needs to realize that complex rehab in general is a very small part of the budget, and that the clients that we service really deserve to have better in regards to their selection. Especially if you have clients who are living productive lives, working, being very productive in their life. Having an indoor chair can limit what they can do sometimes on their own.
One of the whole reasons behind funding is to get a person like myself, people who need something like this, out into the workplace so they can contribute, so they can pay taxes and all that sort of stuff. So when it's not funded by Medicare, once again, it flies in the face of the whole reason behind government involvement, getting involved in getting people back into work situations and contributory situations. It just doesn't, it's ironic. It opposes what it's supposed to be.
When I was still practicing, I actually worked in a seating clinic, and that was one of the more frustrating parts of my job was, you know, seeing a client who worked downtown, and you know, you're showing them a chair that is, you know, good for indoors, but what about when they go to work? You know, that's 50% of their day is at work, and so you're sort of trying to find what's best for them, but work off of what Medicare's requirements are.
In the last few years, we've seen a lot of voc rehabs saying, hey, listen, these are great employees that are out there. If we can get, they're highly intelligent, they're very motivated, they're excited to be in the workplace. How do we get them back into the workplace, and how do we get them sort of contributing back in the main flow of society? So they've started providing for stuff like that.
Transportation provided by Braun Ability. Locations provided by Illuminate Studios. The Power Wheelchair Comparison Web Series, brought to you by the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation and Gold Pictures.